Imagine a hypothetical scenario where someone is sitting on a bench with God, and the person says, God, can I ask you a question? God says, of course, fire away. God, why do you allow bad stuff to happen? Why do you allow wars? Why do you allow disaster? Why do you allow tragedy? Why do you allow famine? Why do you allow people to starve? Why do you allow intolerance? Why do you allow injustice? The list could go on and on. And then God says to the person, well, that's funny, because I was just about to ask you the same question. And that's the gist of it all, really, isn't it? That we blame God for things that have absolutely nothing to do with him, but rather are a product of man's evil, selfish, and what the Bible calls sinful nature. God doesn't start wars. People may use religion, inverted commas, as an excuse for murder, whether it's on a small scale or a large scale, something that might make the headline news for a long period of time, or something that probably doesn't even make the press. People use religion for all sorts of evil ways, just like Herod did when he said to the wise men, tell me where Jesus is, because when you find him, I too want to go and worship him. And of course he didn't want to worship him, he wanted to kill him, but he clothed his wickedness with a respectable cloak of religion. So these things have nothing to do with God at all. If we look at the world in which we live, if we lived according to the Ten Commandments and we took God out of it, even the commandments that speak about the way we live with one another and the way we treat one another, the world would instantly be a better place. So when you look at the world in which we live, you can't blame God. You can't blame God for the injustice, the intolerance, and all the bad stuff that goes on in the world today. But some people might say, but what about the personal tragedies, the things that happen to us, like someone dies or someone goes through a very, very difficult time? I think regarding difficult times and experiences in life, if we're honest, a lot of the things that we go through are because we made the wrong decisions. I know people, I see people, I watch people making decisions, embarking on a particular path in life, and I know that it will all end in tears. I know that there will not be a happy ending. It might be relationships, it might be some other aspect of life's choices, but ultimately, as the Bible tells us, we reap what we sow. And if we're sowing bad decisions in our life, then we shouldn't be surprised if we reap a terrible harvest at the end of it. And you can't blame God for those things. And there are those things, I suppose, that are tragedies that are external to our choices, where someone goes through maybe a cancer experience, an awful time, and it's not a positive result at the end of it. What about God in all of that? I think a perfect example to deal with that aspect of the question is Job. And Job was a righteous man. He was a man of God. He believed in God. He had a good, strong, genuine, true faith. And when things didn't go well for him in his life, and I mean really didn't go well for him, lost his children, his possessions, his home, all that sort of stuff was taken away. When things didn't go well for him, it was his wife who said, why don't you curse God and die? And Job said, should we accept just good from God and not bad? Now, of course, not that God is the instigator or the author of sin, because he isn't. He can't. It's impossible for God to be the author of sin. But what Job was saying is, shall we just praise God? Shall we just love God? Shall we just follow God when everything's going well for us? We also, if we're true disciples and believers, we have to, if you like, weather it through the difficult times. And as a Christian, I've been through those times. I've had my father-in-law both die of cancer. My granddaughter, there were a couple of incidents during the time of the pregnancy that we thought she wasn't going to make it. On one particular occasion, the midwife said to my daughter, prepare yourself for the worst. It might not be, a very good outcome. But in all of that, I didn't blame God. In all of that, I never said that if this doesn't work out right, which with my granddaughter it did, with my father and father-in-law it didn't. But at no time did I say, well, if I don't get what I want, I'm turning my back on God. Because like Job, we see the big picture. We become philosophical. We become stoical. We see that just because we're Christians, that doesn't mean to say we're exempt from suffering. We have to see the bigger, wider, eternal picture in all of this. So in answer to the question, why does God allow all this sort of stuff to happen? As you begin to break it down, you see that in most instances, most cases, it's actually got nothing to do with God. And it's quite ironic that those people who have no time for God in their everyday lives, never go to church, have no consideration whatsoever for God or the things of God, when something goes wrong, they blame him. How ironic is that?